Parents of 7 children. So please welcome Mr. Stephen Lair.
In the 7th month, on the 10th day of the month, you shall afflict your souls, and you shall not do any work. For on that day he shall provide atonement for you to cleanse you from all your sins before the Lord. This is Leviticus 16, chapter 16, lines 29 and 30. This is the essence of Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur is a major holiday within the Jewish calendar. It is the Day of Atonement. It is the day where most of you are familiar that Jews fast on this day. They fast from sunset to sunset. But before going through Yom Kippur, what I'd like to do is take you on a little bit of a different path and a little divergence about this issue of fasting. And what I'd like to discuss with you or share with you is a story about another fasting holiday on the Jewish calendar called Tisha B'Av. I don't know if all of you have known about this, but this is the 9th day of Av. That's a particular month, and it's recently celebrated, July, August, it's recently been celebrated. On this particular day, Jews fast. So I want to give you a little history of Tisha B'Av. First of all, this particular holiday started in about 150 CE, maybe 175. It went through about 400, and then it kind of faded away, and then it came back in about 1500. And what this holiday does is it commemorates the catastrophic events that happened in the Jewish world. During the time of Moses, Jews in the desert accepted the slanderous report of 10 spies that they would not be able to get into Canaan. So what God did is said, okay, Jews, that's fine. You're going to wander through the desert for 40 years, and this whole generation is not going to be able to get into Canaan. This is after the Exodus. The first temple was destroyed on this particular day by the Babylonians in the year 586 BCE. The second temple was destroyed by the Romans on this particular day, led by Titus. And this was a situation where there was possibly 2 million Jews that were killed, and 1 million of them went into Exodus. The Bar Kokhba revolt. This was the crushing blow for the Jews in 135 when the Romans basically took over all of this particular area. And this is the time where the country, this area of the world, which was called Judea at the time, was turned to Palestine, and Jerusalem was closed off from the Jews, and it was renamed. So this one particular day has these 5 catastrophic events that occurred on this one particular day. And what occurred was that the rabbis decided that this would be a day to fast, to commemorate the mourning and the loss of our society. Now, I'm not a rabbi and I'm not an academic, but I've decided to look at Tisha B'Av a little differently. I've tried to decide to look at it more as this was Jewish Reformation Day. This was a day when Jews were one society beforehand and a different society going forward. And what happened was Tisha B'Av, this fasting holiday, commemorating of mourning, is when this temple got destroyed. The destruction of the temple was the line that stopped the biblical times of Judaism. Judaism was a priestly religion. It was a centralized religion. It was a sacrificial religion. People used to come from outside of Jerusalem. They would come to Jerusalem. They would give a goat to the priest. The priest would burn it, and the people would go back to their towns and teach their kids soccer. I just wanted to see if you were paying attention. Right? But what happened was when that temple was destroyed, the rabbis took over and they turned the religion into decentralization, synagogue-driven, and we were going to focus on acts of loving kindness, prayer, and study. So this Jewish Reformation kind of ties into me as, okay, I'm very, very proud of the fact that my community went through this Reformation, and it came out on the other end. But then I kind of always wonder, well, why is it and how is it that this community ended up continuing to be in existence after all of these calamities? And I want to just bring you back to Jewish. Now, what's another name for the Jewish people? Israelites. They were called Hebrews. They were called Judeans. But oftentimes they were called Israelites. Well, what does Israelite mean? What does Israel mean? And I'm not sure if everybody knows it, or if it's for me, I'm busy. That's what I like. But Israel, the name came from when Jacob was wrestling with God, somehow was victorious in wrestling with the angel, was victorious, came out the next morning, but the angel had said, your name is now no longer Jacob, but it is now Israel. And why was he called Israel? Because he wrestled with God. So, I look at our rabbis and the leaders of our community, of our spiritual community, as the big wrestlers. And I turned to one of my rabbis, the one that I grew up with, who did my father's funeral and everything of that sort, and I said, Barry, what would you say is your definition or your job description? And he turned to me and he said, I'm here to make the comfortable uncomfortable and the uncomfortable comfortable. And I kind of knew right there that I was in for a very long journey of wrestling. But I'm proud of that wrestling. How does that tie back to Yom Kippur? If we look at the Torah, and we look at the line, it says, in the 7th month, on the 10th day of the month, you shall afflict your souls. How does afflict your souls turn into can't have sex, can't wear leather, can't eat, can't drink? It's what the rabbis came up with, was that definition. And it's simply, what I wanted to share with you tonight is how we deal with all of these spiritual aspects. And I will come back to fasting. But what the teachers have taught me is I take a line of Torah, and I'm sitting there with one other person or 4 other people, and we turn around and look at what the rabbis have said in the past, and then try and figure out what exactly that line means and how it applies to today. That's what Judaism is about. We're not into knowing, we're into growing. And being able to prepare for this evening helped me once again to grow. So the purpose of fasting is the achievement of atonement for sins and omissions in divine service. Fasting is not considered the primary means of acquiring atonement. Rather, sincere regret for and rectification of wrongdoing is the key. Personal story. I have a very dear friend that I started Nechama with. We got to